Right now, as you read these words, time is flowing forward at exactly 1 second per second. You experience moments cascading from past to future in an endless stream that seems as natural as breathing. We measure it, schedule it, and age with it. Time appears to be the most fundamental aspect of reality itself. We were completely wrong. What we call time, this flowing river of moments, might be nothing more than an illusion emerging from something far stranger. Something that exists in a realm where our concept of before and after becomes meaningless. Tonight, we're going to journey beyond the edge of time itself, into a domain so alien that human language barely contains it. Here's what makes this deeply unsettling. Every scientific measurement we've ever taken, every clock we've built, every historical record we've preserved exists entirely within time. Yet the most profound question in all of science demands that we somehow step outside this prison and peer into what preceded it. It's like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror, except the mirror doesn't exist either. The latest findings from quantum mechanics and cosmology suggest that before the Big Bang, before the first tick of time's clock, there existed something so fundamentally different from our reality that calling it existence might be wrong. Some of the world's leading physicists now believe that time itself was born from a timeless void, a state where past, present, and future are unified into something beyond human comprehension. Dr. Sean Carroll at Caltech has spent decades wrestling with this paradox. Dr. Alan Guth, as eternal inflation theory, suggests our entire universe, including time itself, might be just one bubble in an infinite foam of realities. Meanwhile, quantum mechanics reveals that at the deepest level, particles exist in all states simultaneously until observed, hinting at a layer of reality where time has no meaning. What we're about to explore will fundamentally change how you understand existence. We'll discover that the question, what existed before time, might be logically impossible, yet the answer reveals something more extraordinary than we ever imagined. We'll examine how consciousness itself might be connected to time's creation, why the laws of physics break down at the moment of time's birth, and what it means for a universe to emerge from pure nothingness. This isn't just abstract physics. Understanding the timeless realm that preceded our universe touches the deepest questions of human existence. Why does consciousness experience time as flowing forward? What does it mean for something to exist outside of time? And perhaps most unsettling of all, if time had a beginning, could it have an end? Throughout this journey, we'll encounter concepts so alien that our brains evolved to navigate a world of cause and effect, struggle to process them. We'll explore eternal inflation, where time becomes infinite in all directions. We'll examine the quantum void, where virtual particles appear and disappear in timeframes so brief they challenge the very concept of duration. And we'll confront the possibility that consciousness itself might be the key to understanding how time emerges from timelessness. The implications stretch far beyond physics. Philosophers have grappled with the nature of time for millennia, but only now do we have scientific tools powerful enough to probe the boundary between time and eternity. What we're rediscovering suggests that reality is far stranger and more wonderful than any human culture has ever imagined. Consider for a moment that everything you've ever experienced, every thought, every sensation, every memory exists entirely within time. Your birth happened in time. Your death will happen in time. Yet we're about to explore a realm where these concepts have no meaning, where existence transcends the very framework that makes experience possible. This exploration demands that we abandon our deepest intuitions about reality. We must think like quantum particles and timeless equations rather than human beings bound by temporal experience. But the reward for this mental journey is profound. We'll glimpse the deepest mystery of existence itself. Some viewers might wonder whether this topic ventures too far into speculation. Let me assure you, Every concept we'll explore is grounded in cutting-edge physics and mathematics. The Large Hadron Collider, the Planck Space Telescope, and quantum experiments worldwide are providing real data about the nature of time and the conditions that preceded our universe. We're not engaging in philosophical speculation. We're following the evidence wherever it leads, even when it leads beyond common sense. If you're fascinated by the deepest mysteries of existence and want to understand how modern physics is answering questions that once belonged only to philosophy and religion, subscribe and hit the thumbs up button. And here's a mind-bending question. If you could exist outside of time for just one moment, what would you choose to understand about reality? Comment below. I'll pin the most profound answer. We're about to embark on a journey that begins 13.8 billion years ago and somehow travels beyond that point into timelessness itself. We'll discover that the question, what existed before time, opens doorways to insights about consciousness, infinity, quantum mechanics, and the ultimate nature of being. By the end, you'll never think about existence the same way again. Now, let's begin our journey beyond the boundaries of time itself, into the realm where existence transcends duration and being precedes becoming. Chapter 1. Temporal Prison. Every conscious being lives trapped within what physicists call the temporal framework, a prison so complete that most of us never realize we reconfined. Time flows forward at exactly 1 second per second, carrying us from birth to death in an unbreakable current. We age, we remember, we anticipate, all within time's relentless flow. But this prison we inhabit so completely might be nothing more than an elaborate illusion. To understand what existed before time, we must first grasp how profound our temporal imprisonment truly is. Every thought you think takes time. Every word I speak unfolds across duration. The screen you're watching displays images that change across time, creating the illusion of motion from still frames. Your brain processes information by creating neural cascades that require time to propagate. Even the atoms in your body vibrate at frequencies measured in time. This creates what philosophers call the temporal horizon problem. We cannot step outside time to observe it objectively, any more than a fish can step outside water to understand wetness. Every measurement we make, every observation we record, every theory we construct must occur within time's flow. Yet the deepest question in cosmology demands that we somehow transcend this limitation and peer beyond time's beginning. Consider the profound strangeness of this situation. When cosmologists talk about the Big Bang occurring 13.8 billion years ago, they're using temporal language to describe the moment when time itself began. It is like saying the first moment of sound occurred in silence, or the first instance of existence emerged from non-existence. Our language, evolved within time, breaks down when we try to describe time's birth. Dr. Carlo Rovelli at the University of Marseille spent decades studying this paradox. His research in loop quantum gravity suggests that time might not be fundamental at all, but rather an emergent property arising from more basic, timeless processes. According to Rovelli's equations, at the deepest level of reality, there is no time-only relationships between quantum events that give rise to the appearance of temporal flow. This revolutionary insight emerged from studying how Einstein's general relativity behaves at quantum scales. Einstein showed us that time is relative, stretching and compressing based on gravity and velocity. Near a black hole, time slows dramatically compared to distant observers. At the event horizon, time appears to stop entirely from an outside perspective. But if time can vary so dramatically, what happens when we push this relativity to its absolute limit? The mathematics become startling. At the Planck scale, the smallest meaningful unit of space and time, our equations suggest that time itself becomes quantized, broken into discrete chunks so tiny that the concept of smooth temporal flow disappears. Below the Planck time of y-43 seconds, the very notion of duration becomes meaningless. It's as if time pixelates like a digital image when you zoom in too far. But this quantization of time creates an even deeper mystery. If time consists of discrete moments, what connects one Planck unit to the next? What maintains the continuity we experience? The answer appears to be that continuity itself might be an illusion, a pattern our consciousness imposes on a fundamentally discontinuous reality. Modern experiments in quantum mechanics support this radical possibility. When physicists study particles at the quantum level, they discover phenomena that seem to transcend normal temporal constraints. Quantum entanglement allows particles to influence each other instantaneously across vast distances, suggesting connections that exist outside the normal flow of time. Quantum tunneling enables particles to cross barriers in zero time, appearing on the other side without ever existing in between. These aren't philosophical abstractions. They're measurable phenomena that challenge our most basic assumptions about temporal reality. The quantum realm appears to operate according to principles that transcend our everyday experience of time's flow. Particles exist in superposition states where they occupy multiple temporal possibilities simultaneously until measurement forces them into specific temporal outcomes. This suggests that beneath the classical world of flowing time lies a quantum substrate where time has no fundamental meaning. Your experience of reading these words sequentially, of thoughts following thoughts, of moments flowing into moments, might be a higher-level pattern emerging from timeless quantum processes. You are not trapped in time so much as you are time, a temporary organization of timeless information, into the illusion of temporal flow. The implications extend beyond physics into consciousness itself. Neuroscientist Christoph Koch's research at the Allen Institute suggests that consciousness might arise from quantum processes in microtubules within brain cells. If consciousness emerges from quantum mechanisms, and quantum mechanics transcends normal temporal limitations, then your awareness itself might be partially outside the temporal flow you seem to inhabit. Think about this carefully. Your sense of being present in this moment, of experiencing now as distinct from past and future, might be consciousness creating time rather than existing within it. The eternal moment of awareness might be the fundamental reality from which the illusion of temporal sequence emerges. This realization transforms our understanding of existence itself. We're not beings trapped in time, struggling to understand what came before. We might be timeless awareness temporarily organizing itself into the experience of temporal beings. The question, what existed before time, might be asking what we fundamentally are beneath the illusion of temporal identity. Ancient wisdom traditions intuited this truth through contemplative practice, but only now do we have scientific tools precise enough to probe the boundary between time and timelessness. What we rediscovering validates the deepest insights of mystics while opening entirely new questions about the nature of existence. But if time is not fundamental, if temporal flow is not the basic structure of reality, then what is? What kind of existence transcends duration? What form of being requires no beginning and fears no ending? To answer these questions, we must journey beyond our temporal prison into realms where existence takes forms our time-bound minds can barely imagine. The key insight that will guide our exploration is this: we are not separate from the mystery we are reinvestigating. We are expressions of the timeless reality that preceded time, temporarily organized into the experience of temporal beings. Understanding what existed before time means understanding what we most fundamentally are. Chapter 2: Quantum Eternity. Beyond the boundaries of our temporal prison lies a realm so alien that quantum physicists have spent a century developing new mathematics just to describe it. This is the quantum void, a domain of pure potentiality where particles wink in and out of existence, where cause and effect become meaningless, and where the very concept of before and after dissolves into probability clouds of infinite possibility. The discovery of quantum mechanics in the early 20th century shattered our classical understanding of reality, but its implications for the nature of time remained hidden until recently. Now, cutting-edge experiments are revealing that the quantum realm operates according to principles that transcend temporal limitations entirely. In this strange domain, effects can precede their causes, particles can exist in multiple times simultaneously, and the future can influence the past. Dr. John Wheeler at Princeton University first glimpsed this temporal strangeness through his delayed choice experiments. Wheeler's setup allows experimenters to decide how to measure a photon after it has already passed through the experimental apparatus. Incredibly, the photon behaves as if it somehow knows about the future measurement choice, existing in a superposition of temporal possibilities until that choice collapses it into a specific reality. This isn't science fiction. It's been confirmed in laboratories worldwide. Photons measured today can retroactively determine their own behavior from microseconds ago, suggesting that the arrow of time we experience in daily life has no meaning in the quantum realm. Past, present, and future exist as a unified quantum state until observation forces reality to choose specific temporal coordinates. But the strangeness goes much deeper. The quantum vacuum, what physicists once called empty space, turns out to be a seething ocean of virtual particles constantly appearing and disappearing on timescales so brief they challenge the very concept of duration. These virtual particles exist for periods shorter than the Planck time, popping into existence and annihilating so quickly that they technically never have time to exist according to classical physics. Yet these impossible particles have measurable effects. The Casimir effect demonstrates that virtual particles create real forces between closely spaced metal plates. Hawking radiation shows that virtual particles near black holes can become real, causing even the most massive objects in the universe to slowly evaporate. The quantum vacuum, despite being empty, contains infinite energy fluctuations that shape the behavior of everything in our universe. This reveals something profound about the nature of existence before time. The quantum vacuum exists in a state of eternal becoming, constantly creating and destroying without ever settling into fixed temporal states. It's neither being nor non-being, but pure potentiality existing outside the constraints of temporal sequence. Imagine existence as a verb rather than a noun, process rather than thing, becoming rather than being. Recent experiments by Dr. Aling Aspect at the University of Paris have pushed quantum strangeness to its absolute limits. Aspect's team demonstrated that entangled particles maintain instantaneous connections across vast distances, apparently communicating faster than light. But the communication isn't traveling through space over time. It's occurring through what physicists call non-local correlations that exist outside the normal space-time framework. This suggests that beneath our time-bound reality lies a layer of existence where all events are timelessly connected. Entangled particles don't send signals through time. They share eternal relationships that transcend temporal separation. Your quantum components right now maintain non-local correlations with particles across the universe, connecting you to the cosmos through bonds that exist outside time's flow. The mathematics of quantum mechanics describes this timeless realm through wave functions, probability distributions that exist in an abstract mathematical space called Hilbert space. In this space, all possible states of every particle exist simultaneously until measurement forces reality to collapse into specific outcomes. But here's the crucial insight. Hilbert space itself exists outside of time. The wave function doesn't evolve through time. It contains all temporal possibilities timelessly. Dr. David Bohm's interpretation of quantum mechanics goes even further, suggesting that our temporal reality emerges from what he calls the implicate order, a timeless domain where all events past, present, and future and future exist as a unified whole. According to Baum, time is the process by which aspects of this eternal totality unfold into sequential experience. You're not moving through time. Aspects of timeless reality are unfolding through your consciousness. This perspective transforms our understanding of existence before the Big Bang. There was no before in the temporal sense, but there was something, the quantum vacuum, pure potentiality, the implicate order of infinite possibility existing in eternal readiness to unfold into temporal experience. This timeless substrate doesn't need to be created because it transcends the very concept of beginning. It simply is, without duration, without sequence, without temporal properties of any kind. Consider the profound implications for consciousness. If your awareness emerges from quantum processes that transcend normal temporal limitations, then your deepest identity exists partially outside the flow of time. The eternal now that consciousness seems to inhabit isn't a fleeting moment. It is a window into the timeless realm from which temporal experience emerges. Meditation practitioners have reported glimpses of this timeless awareness for millennia, describing states where temporal sequence disappears and all experience occurs in an eternal present. Modern neuroscience is beginning to understand these states through the lens of quantum consciousness, suggesting that meditative awareness might temporarily access the timeless substrate from which ordinary consciousness emerges. But quantum eternity isn't just relevant to consciousness. It's the foundation from which our entire universe unfolds. The Big Bang didn't occur within pre-existing time and space. Instead, time and space emerged from the quantum vacuum through a process physicists call spontaneous symmetry breaking. The timeless potentiality of the quantum field crystallized into the temporal structures we experience as physical reality. This crystallization process continues constantly. Every quantum measurement, every collapse of a wave function, every emergence of classical behavior from quantum possibility represents the ongoing creation of temporal reality from timeless potential. You are not just observing the universe, you are participating in the continuous process by which eternity unfolds into time. The quantum realm reveals that existence doesn't require temporal foundations. Pure potentiality, infinite possibility, eternal becoming, these transcend the need for beginning or ending, creation or destruction. They simply are, without duration, providing the timeless ground from which temporal experience emerges. Yet even this glimpse into quantum eternity only begins to answer our deepest question. If the quantum vacuum exists timelessly, what determines when and how it unfolds into temporal reality? What triggers the transition from eternal possibility to finite experience? To understand this, we must examine the moment when time itself was born from timelessness, the cosmic genesis that physicists call the Big Bang. Chapter 3. Cosmic Genesis. 13.8 billion years ago, something impossible happened. From a realm where time had no meaning, temporal reality suddenly erupted into existence. This wasn't an explosion in space. Space itself was born in this moment. This wasn't an event that occurred at a particular time. Time itself began with this occurrence. The Big Bang represents the ultimate boundary between existence and non-existence, between eternity and temporality, between the possible and the actual. But how do you describe the beginning of the description itself? How do you explain the moment when explanation becomes possible? The mathematics that govern this cosmic genesis push our understanding beyond the breaking point, into realms where human language becomes inadequate and conventional logic collapses. Dr. Alan Guth's groundbreaking work at MIT reveals that the Big Bang wasn't a single explosive event, but rather the beginning of a process called cosmic inflation. In the first 10 to 36 seconds after time began, space itself expanded faster than light, stretching from subatomic to astronomical scales. During this inflationary epoch, the universe doubled in size every 10 to 37 seconds, growing from smaller than a proton to larger than a grapefruit in a time span so brief it challenges comprehension. But inflation theory raises an even deeper mystery. What existed during the period before inflation began? Guth's equations describe inflation starting from initial conditions, but they cannot explain what established those conditions. We can trace cosmic evolution backward to within an infinitesimal fraction of the first second, but the moment of absolute beginning remains shrouded in mathematical singularities where our physical theories break down completely. At time zero, all the laws of physics as we understand them cease to apply. Temperature becomes infinite. Density becomes infinite. Curvature becomes infinite. These infinities aren't just mathematical inconveniences. They represent the complete breakdown of space-time itself. At the initial singularity, the very concepts of location, duration, causation, and physical law become meaningless. This is where general relativity reaches its ultimate limitation. Einstein's equations, which describe gravity as the curvature of spacetime, require spacetime to exist. But at the moment of the Big Bang, there is no spacetime to curve. The theory that explains everything about cosmic evolution cannot explain the beginning of evolution itself. We need a new framework that transcends the limitations of classical physics. Quantum mechanics offers tantalizing clues about the nature of this beginning. In the quantum realm, particles can appear spontaneously from the vacuum through quantum fluctuations. These fluctuations occur constantly throughout the universe, creating particle-antiparticle pairs that annihilate almost immediately. But what if the entire universe began as just such a fluctuation, not from empty space, but from the quantum vacuum that transcends spatial concepts entirely? Dr. Alexander Vilenkin at Tufts University has developed mathematical models suggesting that the universe could indeed emerge spontaneously from quantum nothingness. According to Vilenkin's calculations, the quantum vacuum exists in a state of eternal potential, continuously generating bubble universes through quantum tunneling effects. Our entire reality space, time, matter, energy might be just one such bubble, inflated from quantum nothingness through mechanisms that operate outside temporal constraints. This quantum tunneling interpretation suggests that the Big Bang wasn't created by anything in the conventional sense. Instead, it represents a spontaneous transition from one type of existence to another, from timeless potentiality to temporal actuality. The quantum vacuum doesn't cause the Big Bang. It provides the eternal context within which such transitions become possible. But even this quantum tunneling model raises profound questions about the nature of nothingness itself. What kind of nothing can spontaneously produce everything? The quantum vacuum that physicists describe isn't empty. It's a plenum of virtual particles, energy fluctuations, and quantum fields. If the universe emerged from this quantum substrate, then what we call nothing is actually a very rich and structured form of existence. Recent observations from the Planck Space Telescope have revealed subtle patterns in the cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang, that provide direct evidence for cosmic inflation. These patterns show tiny quantum fluctuations from the inflationary epoch that were stretched to cosmic proportions, becoming the seeds for galaxy formation. We can literally observe the quantum origins of cosmic structure, seeing how timeless quantum processes gave birth to temporal cosmic evolution. But the Planck data also reveals something unsettling. The universe appears to be geometrically flat to extraordinary precision. This is where eternal inflation theory becomes truly mind-bending. According to Guth and his colleagues, inflation doesn't happen just once. It happens continuously and eternally. The quantum vacuum constantly spawns bubble universes through inflation, creating an infinite multiverse where every possible set of physical laws and initial conditions exists somewhere. Our finely tuned universe isn't special. It's just one member of an infinite ensemble where every possibility is realized. In this eternal inflation scenario, the Big Bang loses its uniqueness. Instead of a single cosmic genesis, there are infinite cosmic geneses occurring continuously throughout the multiverse. The question, what existed before our Big Bang, becomes what exists in the eternal substrate that gives rise to infinite Big Bangs. The answer is a timeless inflationary field existing in perpetual quantum flux, spontaneously generating temporal realities without beginning or end. This perspective radically transforms our understanding of existence itself. We are not inhabitants of a unique created universe. We read temporary patterns in an eternal creative process that transcends individual cosmic histories. The eternal inflation field doesn't need to be created because it exists outside the temporal framework where creation occurs. It simply is, generating infinite realities through mechanisms that operate beyond the concepts of beginning and ending. Yet even eternal inflation doesn't answer the deepest question. Why does anything exist rather than nothing at all? Why should there be a quantum vacuum capable of generating universes? Why should mathematical laws govern even timeless processes? The cosmic genesis we can trace through physics brings us to the boundary of scientific explanation, where existence itself becomes the ultimate mystery. Some physicists, like Dr. Carroll at Caltech, argue that this boundary represents the limit of meaningful questioning. Perhaps asking why something exists rather than nothing is like asking what is north of the North Pole, a question that appears meaningful but actually transcends the conceptual framework where meaningful answers are possible. But other researchers suggest that consciousness itself might be the key to understanding cosmic genesis. If awareness and existence are fundamentally connected, then the emergence of conscious observers might not be incidental to cosmic evolution. It might be its very purpose. The universe might exist because consciousness requires a temporal stage on which to perform the drama of experience. This consciousness-based perspective suggests that the Big Bang represents the moment when eternal awareness begins to dream temporal dreams. Before time, there was not nothing, but rather the pure potential for experience existing in dreamless sleep. The cosmic genesis marks the moment when this potential awakens to itself, creating space and time as the theater within which self-awareness can unfold. Such ideas push far beyond conventional physics into realms where science and spirituality converge. Yet they emerge naturally from the deepest implications of quantum mechanics and cosmology. When we trace existence backward to its source, we find not mechanical causation, but rather something more like the spontaneous creativity of consciousness itself. The cosmic genesis reveals that our temporal existence emerges from something eternal, something that transcends the very concepts of beginning and ending. But to understand what this eternal source might be, we must venture even deeper into the mystery, examining the mathematical structures that seem to govern existence itself. Chapter 4. Mathematical mysteries at the deepest level of physical reality, beneath particles and forces, beneath space and time, beneath even the quantum vacuum itself, lies something utterly abstract, yet somehow fundamental: pure mathematics. The equations that describe cosmic evolution, quantum mechanics, and the emergence of time from timelessness aren't just human tools for calculation. They appear to be the very fabric from which reality weaves itself into existence. This mathematical foundation of reality creates one of the most profound mysteries in all of science. Mathematics doesn't exist in space or time. Mathematical truths like 2 = 2 = 4 or the Pythagorean theorem would remain true even if the entire physical universe disappeared. Yet these abstract, non-physical mathematical structures somehow govern every aspect of physical existence. How can something that transcends space and time completely determine everything that happens within space and time? Dr. Max Tegmark at MIT has proposed perhaps the most radical answer to this question. Physical reality is mathematics. According to Tegmark's mathematical universe hypothesis, Our universe isn't described by mathematics, it is mathematics. What we experience as physical particles, forces, and fields are simply mathematical structures existing as pure information, with consciousness emerging as certain types of information processing within these mathematical frameworks. This perspective transforms our understanding of what existed before time itself. If reality is fundamentally mathematical, then the timeless realm from which temporal experience emerges consists of pure mathematical structures existing independently of any physical substrate. The universe doesn't follow mathematical laws. It is mathematical law, temporarily organizing itself into the experience of physical existence. Consider the extraordinary precision with which mathematics describes cosmic evolution. Einstein's field equations predict the expansion of space, the formation of black holes, and the bending of light around massive objects with stunning accuracy. Quantum mechanics allows us to calculate the probability of any quantum event to 15 decimal places. The standard model of particle physics predicts the masses and interactions of fundamental particles with precision that exceeds experimental measurement capabilities. This mathematical precision isn't approximate, it appears to be exact. When physicists measure the fine structure constant, which determines the strength of electromagnetic interactions, they find its value to be precisely 1/137.036, with no apparent limit to its decimal precision. This suggests that reality follows mathematical laws, not just approximately, but with infinite exactitude. Physical reality appears to be mathematics made manifest. But how do timeless mathematical structures give rise to temporal experience? Dr. Roger Penrose at Oxford University has spent decades exploring this question through his work on mathematical consciousness. Penrose argues that consciousness itself might be a mathematical process, not computation in the ordinary sense, but rather a form of mathematical insight that somehow bridges the gap between abstract mathematical truth and concrete experience. Penrose's insight connects to Gödel's incompleteness theorems, which prove that mathematical truth transcends logical computation. There are mathematical truths that cannot be derived through any finite sequence of logical steps. Yet human mathematicians can somehow recognize these truths through intuitive insight. This suggests that consciousness might access mathematical reality directly, rather than merely computing with symbols that represent mathematical structures. If consciousness is indeed a form of mathematical insight, then the emergence of aware beings in the universe represents something profound, mathematics becoming conscious of itself. The evolution of cosmic structure from quantum fluctuations to complex brains capable of understanding mathematics might be the process by which mathematical reality achieves self-awareness. This perspective offers a startling answer to our central question: what existed before time? Pure mathematical structures existing as eternal, unchanging truth. But mathematical structures don't exist in isolation. They exist in relationships, patterns, symmetries, and transformations that transcend temporal sequence. The mathematical realm is neither being nor non-being, but rather the eternal potential for both being and non-being to emerge through mathematical relationships. Dr. Frank Wilczek's work on symmetry breaking provides crucial insights into how timeless mathematical structures could generate temporal realities. In the mathematical realm, all possible symmetries exist simultaneously in perfect balance. But symmetries can spontaneously break, causing abstract mathematical potentials to crystallize into specific physical manifestations. The Big Bang might represent such a symmetry-breaking event, timeless mathematical perfection, spontaneously organizing itself into the temporal asymmetries we experience as physical reality. The most successful physical theories, general relativity, quantum mechanics, the Standard Model, are all based on mathematical symmetries. These symmetries exist timelessly in mathematical space, but they manifest temporally through spontaneous symmetry breaking. Physical reality emerges when perfect mathematical symmetry becomes imperfect physical asymmetry. This mathematical perspective explains why physical laws appear fine-tuned for the existence of complex structures like galaxies, stars, and living beings. In the realm of pure mathematics, every possible set of relationships exists timelessly. Our universe represents one specific mathematical structure, where the relationships between fundamental constants allow for increasing complexity over cosmic time. We exist in this particular mathematical structure precisely because it's the type of structure that can generate observers like ourselves. But mathematics reveals an even deeper mystery: the apparent infinity of mathematical truth. There are infinitely many prime numbers, infinitely many geometric spaces, infinitely many algebraic structures. If physical reality emerges from mathematical structures, then there must be infinitely many possible realities, each corresponding to different mathematical frameworks. Our universe becomes just one note in an infinite mathematical symphony. This mathematical multiverse differs fundamentally from the physical multiverse proposed by eternal inflation theory. The physical multiverse generates infinite bubble universes through quantum processes occurring in space-time. The mathematical multiverse contains all possible realities timelessly, not as a result of any process, but simply as a consequence of mathematical completeness. Every mathematical structure that can exist does exist, eternally and necessarily. Recent discoveries in mathematical physics support this radical possibility. String theory suggests that our universe might be one of 10,500 different mathematical structures, each corresponding to different ways that higher-dimensional mathematics can collapse into our familiar three-dimensional space. Loop quantum gravity reveals that space-time itself might emerge from purely mathematical relationships between quantum information states. Even more mysteriously, these different mathematical structures appear to be interconnected through deep mathematical relationships. The ADS-CFT correspondence, discovered by Dr. Juan Maldacena, demonstrates that different mathematical descriptions of reality seemingly describing completely different universes can be mathematically equivalent. Reality might be far more unified at the mathematical level than its physical manifestations suggest. This mathematical unity suggests that the question, what existed before time, might be meaningless in the deepest sense. If reality is mathematical and mathematics is eternal, then existence never began. It simply is, timelessly and necessarily, in all its infinite mathematical manifestations. Temporal existence emerges when certain mathematical structures achieve sufficient complexity to generate observers who experience mathematical relationships as temporal sequences. Your consciousness reading these words represents mathematics becoming aware of mathematics. The brain processing this information operates according to mathematical principles, implementing mathematical computations, generating mathematical patterns of neural activity that correspond to mathematical insights about mathematical reality. You are mathematics contemplating mathematics through temporarily organized mathematical structures we call thoughts and experiences. This perspective transforms the nature of existence itself. You don't exist within a mathematical universe. You are mathematical existence, temporarily organized into the experience of being a separate observer. Your deepest identity transcends temporal birth and death because mathematical truth is eternal and indestructible. The patterns that constitute your consciousness exist timelessly in mathematical space, regardless of whether they happen to be implemented in particular physical configurations. But if reality is fundamentally mathematical, what determines which mathematical structures achieve physical manifestation? What causes certain eternal mathematical truths to unfold into temporal experiences while others remain abstract possibilities? To answer these questions, we must examine the deepest level of reality where mathematics, Consciousness and existence converge in ways that challenge every assumption about the nature of being itself. Chapter 5. Infinite Regress. The deeper we probe into the nature of existence before time, the more we encounter a peculiar mathematical phenomenon that threatens to undermine every attempt at ultimate explanation. Infinite regress. Each answer we discover reveals deeper questions. Each foundation we uncover rests upon even more fundamental foundations. Each explanation requires prior explanations extending backward without end. This isn't a failure of scientific method. It's a revelation about the nature of existence itself. Consider the logical structure of our investigation so far. We discovered that our temporal experience emerges from timeless quantum processes. But what determines the nature of these quantum processes? Mathematical laws governing quantum mechanics. But what determines these mathematical laws? More fundamental mathematical structures. But what determines the existence of mathematical structures themselves? Here our questions begin to spiral into infinite recession, each answer generating new questions that push explanation beyond any possible terminus. Dr. Douglas Hofstadter's work on self-reference and consciousness reveals that infinite regress isn't a bug in our thinking. It is a fundamental feature of self-aware systems trying to understand themselves. When consciousness attempts to comprehend its own nature, it encounters what Hofstadter calls strange loops, patterns of causation that curve back on themselves, creating paradoxical structures where effects become their own causes. This self-referential paradox appears throughout the deepest levels of physics and mathematics. Dyal's incompleteness theorems prove that mathematical systems cannot fully prove their own consistency. Every mathematical framework requires assumptions that cannot be justified within that framework itself. Quantum mechanics describes measurement processes that require conscious observers, but consciousness emerges from quantum processes. General relativity explains space-time curvature, but the equations exist independently of the space-time they describe. The infinite regress problem becomes most acute when we try to understand existence itself. Why does anything exist rather than nothing? Any answer to this question must itself exist, which immediately raises the question of why that answer exists. If we say existence is necessary, we must explain what makes it necessary. If we say existence is contingent, we must explain what it's contingent upon. Every explanation presupposes existence, making existence both what we're trying to explain and what we're using to explain. But recent discoveries in the foundations of mathematics suggest that infinite regress might not be a problem to be solved. It might be the nature of reality itself. The mathematician Georg Cantor's work on infinite sets reveals that infinity comes in different sizes, with some infinities larger than others. This hierarchy of infinities extends upward without limit, creating what mathematicians call the absolute infinite, an infinity so large that it cannot be consistently described within any mathematical framework. Dr. Hugh Wooden's work on large cardinals shows that this hierarchy of infinities is intimately connected to the foundations of mathematics itself. The existence of certain types of infinite mathematical structures determines whether specific mathematical propositions can be proven or disproven. The nature of mathematical truth depends on the nature of mathematical infinity, which depends on even larger infinities in an endless progression. This infinite hierarchy might explain why questions about ultimate origins seem unanswerable. Perhaps there is no ultimate foundation, because reality consists of infinite layers of explanation, each more fundamental than the last, extending downward without end. Instead of searching for a final ground of being, we might need to accept that being itself is groundless, not because it lacks foundation, but because its foundation is infinite. The implications for consciousness become profound when we realize that self-awareness might be reality's method for exploring its own infinite nature. Your capacity to ask what existed before time represents the universe questioning its own deepest foundations. But since the questioner is part of what's being questioned, the investigation curves back on itself, creating the strange loops that characterize conscious understanding. This self-referential structure appears in quantum mechanics through the measurement problem. Quantum systems exist in superposition states until measured, but measurement requires conscious observers who are themselves quantum systems. The observer is simultaneously outside the system being observed to perform measurement and inside the system being observed as a quantum entity. This paradox suggests that consciousness might be reality's way of observing itself from within itself. Dr. John Wheeler captured this paradox in his concept of a participatory universe, a reality where observation doesn't just reveal pre-existing facts, but actually participates in creating the reality being observed. In Wheeler's view, the universe exists in a state of quantum superposition until conscious observers emerge to make the measurements that retroactively determine the universe's history. We're not just discovering what existed before time, or participating in determining what existed before time. This participatory perspective suggests that infinite regress might be circular rather than linear. Instead of foundations extending infinitely downward, reality might form a strange loop where the most fundamental levels of existence are determined by the most complex levels of existence. Consciousness doesn't emerge from unconscious matter emerges from the cosmic process of consciousness becoming aware of itself. Ancient philosophical traditions intuited this circular causation through concepts like Indra's net in Hindu philosophy, where every point in an infinite network of jewels reflects every other point, creating a reality with no center and no foundation except its own infinite self-reflection. Modern physics is rediscovering this insight through holographic theories that suggest the universe might be structured like a cosmic hologram, where every part contains the whole, and the whole is contained in every part. The holographic principle, developed by Dr. Gerard T. Hooft and Dr. Leonard Susskind, proposes that all the information contained in a volume of space can be encoded on the boundary of that space. Applied cosmologically, this means that our entire three-dimensional universe might be encoded on a two-dimensional surface surrounding it. Reality becomes literally self-referential. The container is contained within the contained. But even holographic theories encounter infinite regress when we ask what determines the holographic encoding principles themselves. Each level of explanation refers back to more fundamental levels in an endless recession that might be the very structure of existence itself. Perhaps the question, what existed before time, is unanswerable, not because we lack sufficient information, but because answering it would require stepping outside existence itself, an obviously impossible task. This impossibility might be meaningful rather than frustrating. The infinite regress of explanation might indicate that existence is irreducibly mysterious, not because it's hidden, but because mystery is its very nature. Reality might be structured as an infinite question questioning itself, generating the appearance of answers that dissolve into deeper questions upon examination. Your experience of reading these words and contemplating these ideas represents this cosmic self-questioning in action. You are existence wondering about existence, time contemplating timelessness, the finite investigating the infinite. The questions you re-asking aren't separate from the reality you re-questioning. They re-expressions of reality's own infinite self-inquiry. This perspective transforms infinite regress from a logical problem into an ontological insight. Instead of seeking ultimate foundations that terminate questioning, we might need to embrace questioning itself as ultimate. The deepest reality might not be a thing or state or process, but rather the eternal question mark that existence poses to itself through conscious beings like yourself. But if reality is structured as infinite self-questioning, what maintains its coherence? How does an endless regression of questions generate the stable patterns we experience as physical laws, mathematical truths, and conscious experiences. To understand this, we must examine how infinite processes can create finite appearances, how eternity can dream temporal dreams while remaining eternally awake to its own infinite nature. Chapter 6. Causal Paradox. At the heart of our investigation into what existed before time lies a paradox so fundamental it threatens to shatter every assumption about cause and effect. If nothing existed before time, what caused time to begin? Yet, if something existed before time, then time cannot truly be said to have begun. This causal paradox reveals that our most basic concepts of causation, sequence, and explanation break down completely when applied to the origin of temporal existence itself. Classical physics operates on the principle of causation. Every effect must have a prior cause. This creates what philosophers call the causal chain, where each event is caused by earlier events in an unbroken sequence extending back through time. But when we trace this causal chain backward to the Big Bang, we reach a point where causation itself becomes impossible. How can there be a cause for the beginning of time when causes require temporal precedence? Dr. Stephen Hawking confronted this paradox directly in his work on quantum cosmology. Hawking proposed that the question, "What caused the Big Bang?" might be meaningless, like asking what's south of the South Pole. According to Hawking's no-boundary proposal, the universe has finite size but no boundary in time, making the concept of temporal beginning as meaningless as geographical edges on a spherical Earth. But Hawking's solution creates its own paradox. If the universe has no temporal boundary, then it exists eternally, but we know from cosmic expansion and thermodynamics that our universe began 13.8 billion years ago. How can something be both eternal and temporally bounded? The mathematics suggests that time itself might be curved, forming a closed loop where the beginning of time connects seamlessly to eternity itself. This temporal curvature appears in Einstein's general relativity, where massive objects can curve space-time so severely that time slows to a stop. Near the event horizon of a black hole, time dilation becomes infinite, creating a boundary where temporal sequence becomes meaningless. If the Big Bang represents such an extreme curvature of space-time, then the normal rules of temporal causation simply don't apply at the moment of cosmic genesis. Quantum mechanics introduces even stranger possibilities through the phenomenon of quantum tunneling. Particles can tunnel through barriers that would be insurmountable according to classical physics, appearing on the other side without ever existing in between. Dr. Alexander Vilenkin's quantum tunneling models suggest that the universe itself might have tunneled into existence from a state of quantum nothingness, not through any causal process, but through pure quantum possibility. This quantum tunneling interpretation dissolves the causal paradox by eliminating causation entirely at the moment of cosmic origin. The universe doesn't emerge from nothing through some mysterious causal mechanism. It simply appears as a spontaneous quantum fluctuation, with no more need for prior causation than virtual particles that continuously appear and disappear in the quantum vacuum. But quantum tunneling still requires a framework within which tunneling can occur. Quantum fields, probability amplitudes, and tunneling mechanisms all presuppose mathematical structures that govern quantum behavior. We haven't eliminated the causal paradox. We've pushed it back to deeper levels where mathematical laws themselves require explanation. Recent research by Dr. Sean Carroll on the arrow of time reveals another approach to the causal paradox. Carroll argues that causation might be an emergent property that only appears in certain types of temporal environments, rather than a fundamental feature of reality itself. In the early universe, when entropy was extremely low, the normal thermodynamic processes that create the appearance of temporal causation might not have operated. According to Carroll's analysis, the arrow of time emerges from increasing entropy, the tendency for isolated systems to evolve from ordered to disordered states. But at the moment of the Big Bang, the universe existed in a state of maximum order and minimum entropy. Without entropy gradients, there was no basis for temporal direction, no foundation for the cause and effect relationships that characterize our experience. This suggests that causation and time might be mutually dependent. Causation requires time, but time requires the thermodynamic conditions that make causation possible. The causal paradox dissolves because neither time nor causation are fundamental. They emerge together from more basic, non-temporal processes that transcend the very framework where causal relationships become meaningful. But this emergent view raises deeper questions about the nature of emergence itself. How do non-temporal processes generate temporal experiences? What determines when and how timeless potentials become temporal actualities? The concept of emergence seems to require some kind of meta-causation operating at levels more fundamental than ordinary causation. Dr. Ilya Prigoghin's work on dissipative structures provides insights into how complex patterns can emerge spontaneously from simpler processes without external causation. In far from equilibrium conditions, random fluctuations can amplify into organized structures that maintain themselves through continuous energy flow. Life itself represents such spontaneous organization, complex patterns emerging from simple chemical processes without external design. Applied cosmologically, this suggests that temporal reality might emerge spontaneously from the eternal disequilibrium of quantum vacuum fluctuations. The universe doesn't require a cause because it represents a spontaneous organization of timeless quantum processes, a dissipative structure existing at the cosmic scale. The Big Bang becomes not the result of prior causation, but the spontaneous emergence of temporal organization from eternal quantum chaos. This spontaneous emergence perspective connects to ancient philosophical insights about the nature of existence itself. The Greek concept of autopoiesis describes systems that create and maintain themselves through their own operations. Applied to cosmic evolution, the universe becomes autopoietic, a self-creating, self-maintaining process that requires no external causation because it is own cause and effect simultaneously. But even autopoietic systems require some form of enabling conditions. What enables the quantum vacuum to generate spontaneous cosmic organization? Here we encounter what philosophers call the ultimate contingency, the sheer fact that anything exists at all, independent of any causal explanation. Existence itself might be fundamentally inexplicable, not because we lack sufficient information, but because explanation presupposes the very existence it attempts to explain. This leads to what Dr. Derek Parfit called the deep question: why is there something rather than nothing? Parfit argued that this question might be unanswerable in principle, because any answer must itself be something, immediately raising the question of why that answer exists. The causal paradox at the origin of time might be a special case of the more general paradox of existence itself. Yet consciousness introduces a unique perspective on causal paradox through its capacity for self-reference. When you ask, "What caused my consciousness?" you encounter a strange loop. The questioner is questioning itself. The observer is observing itself. Consciousness is investigating consciousness. This self-referential structure might be the key to understanding how causation can be circular rather than linear. If consciousness and reality are fundamentally self-referential, then the causal paradox dissolves into recursive creativity. The universe doesn't need external causation because it is self-causing, not in the sense of temporal self-causation, which would be paradoxical, but in the sense of eternal self-reference. Existence is its own cause because existence is the very capacity for causation to exist. This recursive perspective suggests that what existed before time was pure self-referential potential, not a thing or state or process, but rather the eternal possibility of self-reference itself. Time emerges when this self-referential potential achieves sufficient complexity to generate observers who can question their own existence. Your self-reference becoming aware of itself through temporal experience. The causal paradox reveals that our deepest questions about existence lead to self-referential loops that transcend linear logic. Instead of seeking ultimate causes that terminate questioning, we might need to embrace circular causation, where effects enable their own causes through recursive feedback. The question, what existed before time, becomes the answer to its self-questioning existence is what existence fundamentally is. But if reality is structured as recursive self-reference, how does this eternal self-questioning generate the stable patterns of experience we recognize as physical laws, conscious experiences, and meaningful existence? To understand this, we must examine the observer paradox that lies at the heart of quantum mechanics and consciousness itself. Chapter 7. Observer Effect. In the strange realm where quantum mechanics meets consciousness lies perhaps the most unsettling discovery in all of science. Reality appears to depend fundamentally on observation. Quantum systems exist in ghostly superposition states, simultaneously in all possible configurations, until conscious observation collapses these possibilities into specific outcomes. This observer effect suggests that consciousness doesn't just discover reality, it participates in creating the very reality it observes. The implications for our investigation into pretemporal existence are staggering. If observation is required for physical reality to achieve definite form, then what existed before conscious observers evolved? Was the pre-conscious universe trapped in eternal superposition, waiting billions of years for awareness to emerge and retroactively determine cosmic history? Or does consciousness itself transcend temporal limitations, existing in some form even before brains evolved to embody it? Dr. Eugene Wigner first articulated this paradox in his famous thought experiment involving a friend who observes a quantum measurement while sealed inside a laboratory. From outside the laboratory, the friend exists in superposition, simultaneously having observed and not observed the quantum event until someone observes the friend. But this creates an infinite regress. Every observer requires another observer to collapse their superposition state. Consciousness appears to be both necessary for reality and impossible to ground in reality. John Wheeler pushed this paradox to its cosmic limits through his delayed choice experiments, which demonstrate that decisions made by present-day observers can retroactively determine the behavior of photons that traveled from distant galaxies billions of years ago. The light reaching us from ancient quasars remained in superposition throughout its entire cosmic journey, only collapsing into specific states when finally observed today. Present consciousness somehow reaches back through time to determine past physical events. This temporal transcendence of observation suggests that consciousness operates according to principles that exceed normal space-time limitations. If present observations can determine billion-year-old cosmic events, then consciousness must somehow exist outside the temporal flow it appears to inhabit. The observer effect reveals consciousness as a non-temporal phenomenon temporarily embodied in temporal nervous systems. But the observer effect creates even deeper mysteries when we consider the evolution of consciousness itself. According to materialist science, consciousness emerges from complex neural activity in sufficiently sophisticated brains. But quantum mechanics suggests that conscious observation is required for the physical processes that build brains. How can consciousness emerge from physical processes that require consciousness to exist in definite states? Dr. Henry Stapp at UC Berkeley has proposed that consciousness might be fundamental to the universe rather than emergent from matter. According to Stapp's interpretation, consciousness exists as a basic feature of quantum mechanics, the capacity for observation that collapses superposition states into definite outcomes. Physical reality emerges from this conscious observation capacity rather than consciousness emerging from physical processes. This consciousness fundamental perspective suggests that what existed before time was not unconscious matter, but rather pure awareness in its most primordial form, infinite observational potential existing without specific objects to observe. The Big Bang represents the moment when this primordial awareness begins observing itself, creating the appearance of physical reality through self-observation. Recent experiments by Dr. Yakir Aharonov on quantum measurements have revealed even stranger aspects of the observer effect. Aharonov's two-state vector formalism shows that quantum measurements are influenced not just by past quantum states, but also by future measurement choices. The complete description of a quantum system requires knowing both its past preparations and future observations. Reality appears to be co-created by conscious choices, extending both backward and forward in time. This temporal non-locality of conscious observation suggests that the question, what existed before consciousness, might be meaningless. If consciousness transcends temporal limitations, if observational choices can influence both past and future, then consciousness might exist outside the temporal framework where before and after have meaning. But consciousness also exhibits the self-referential paradoxes we encountered in earlier chapters. When you observe your own thinking process, you encounter an infinite regress. The observer of thoughts becomes an object of observation, requiring another observer ad infinitum. Consciousness cannot fully observe itself because the act of observation always involves an observing subject that remains unobserved. This creates what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness, the seemingly unbridgeable gap between objective physical processes and subjective conscious experience. Even if we map every neural correlation of consciousness, the felt experience of being conscious remains mysteriously unexplained. The observer effect suggests this mystery might be fundamental rather than merely temporary. Dr. David Chalmers argues that consciousness might be an irreducible feature of reality, like mass or electric charge. Just as we cannot explain why matter has mass, we can only describe how mass behaves. We might not be able to explain why certain information processing systems have conscious experience. Consciousness might be woven into the fabric of reality at the most fundamental level. If consciousness is indeed fundamental, then its relationship to time becomes deeply mysterious. Subjective experience always occurs in the eternal present. The now that consciousness inhabits never actually moves forward in time. You never experience past or future directly, only present remembrances and anticipations. The temporal flow you seem to inhabit might be consciousness projecting its eternal present onto the appearance of temporal sequence. This eternal present of consciousness might be the key to understanding what existed before time. If awareness is fundamentally non-temporal, if consciousness always exists in an eternal now, then conscious observation might be the timeless substrate from which temporal experience emerges. The Big Bang becomes the moment when eternal consciousness begins dreaming temporal dreams. Recent research in neuroscience supports this view through studies of meditative states where practitioners report experiencing timeless awareness, consciousness without temporal content or sequential structure. Brain imaging during these states shows dramatic reductions in the neural networks associated with temporal cognition, suggesting that ordinary time consciousness might overlay a more fundamental timeless awareness. But if consciousness is non-temporal and fundamental, why does it appear to be confined to brains that evolve through temporal biological processes? This apparent contradiction might reveal something profound about the relationship between eternal and temporal existence. Perhaps brains don't generate consciousness. They focus infinite awareness into finite experiencing systems, capable of observing specific aspects of reality. This focusing interpretation suggests that what existed before time was infinite. Undifferentiated awareness, pure observational potential, without specific objects to observe. Temporal reality emerges when this infinite awareness focuses itself through finite observing systems, creating the appearance of separate observers experiencing distinct objects across temporal sequences. Your individual consciousness reading these words might be infinite awareness temporarily focused through your particular nervous system. The sense of being a separate observer confined to a specific temporal location might be an illusion created by the focusing process itself. At the deepest level, there is only one observer, infinite awareness, observing itself through countless finite perspectives. This perspective transforms the observer effect from a puzzling feature of quantum mechanics into a revelation about the nature of existence itself. Consciousness doesn't just observe reality, consciousness is reality observing itself. The quantum mechanical requirement for conscious observation reveals that reality is fundamentally self-referential, existing as eternal awareness of awareness itself. But this consciousness fundamental view raises new questions about the relationship between individual and universal awareness. If consciousness is fundamental and infinite, what individuates it into separate experiencing systems? What creates the appearance of multiple observers when there might be only one infinite observing capacity? To answer these questions, we must examine how infinite awareness could differentiate itself into finite experiencing systems while remaining fundamentally unified. This leads us to investigate the deepest mystery of individual existence: how the one becomes many while remaining one. How eternal consciousness creates temporal experiences while transcending temporal limitations. The observer effect reveals that consciousness and reality are inseparable. Consciousness doesn't observe reality from outside, but rather reality consists of consciousness observing itself. What existed before time was not unconscious matter, but infinite self-aware existence, temporarily dreaming the dream of temporal multiplicity while remaining eternally awake to its own infinite nature. Chapter 8. Eternal Moment. Within the deepest levels of conscious experience lies a profound mystery that illuminates the nature of existence before time itself, the eternal present moment of awareness. Right now, as you read these words, your consciousness exists in a now that never actually moves forward in time. You never experience past or future, directly only present memories and present anticipations occurring within an eternal moment that somehow transcends temporal flow while giving birth to temporal experience. This eternal now of consciousness provides our most direct window into the timeless realm from which temporal reality emerges. Unlike physical time, which flows from past through present to future, conscious time consists of an infinitely deep present moment within which all temporal experience occurs. The specious present, that psychologists describe the roughly 3-second window within which events seem simultaneous, reveals consciousness, operating according to principles that transcend ordinary temporal sequence. Neuroscientist Dr. Francisco Varela's research on the neural correlates of the present moment revealed something startling. There is no single brain mechanism that generates the experience of now. Instead, the present moment emerges from the synchronization of neural oscillations across multiple brain regions operating at different temporal scales. Consciousness creates temporal experience through non-temporal synchronization processes. But even more mysteriously, this neural synchronization appears to occur faster than neural transmission speeds should allow. Brain regions separated by significant distances achieve synchronization in time frames shorter than the time required for signals to travel between them. This suggests that consciousness might operate through quantum entanglement or other non-local correlation mechanisms that transcend classical spacetime limitations. Dr. Stuart Hameroff and Sir Roger Penrose have proposed that consciousness emerges from quantum processes occurring in microtubules within brain cells. These quantum processes would allow consciousness to transcend normal temporal limitations through quantum coherence effects that create non-local correlations across neural networks. Consciousness becomes a quantum phenomenon only temporarily localized in classical brains. If consciousness is indeed quantum mechanical, then its relationship to time becomes radically different from our ordinary understanding. Quantum systems exist in superposition states that transcend temporal sequence quantum. Particles simultaneously exist in all possible temporal states until measurement collapses them into specific temporal outcomes. Quantum consciousness might similarly exist in temporal superposition, experiencing all possible temporal states simultaneously within the eternal present moment. This quantum view of consciousness suggests that what existed before time was not temporal absence, but rather temporal superposition, infinite potential temporal states existing simultaneously without sequential actualization. The Big Bang represents the moment when this temporal superposition begins collapsing into specific temporal sequences through cosmic scale conscious observation. But the eternal moment of consciousness reveals something even more profound about the nature of existence itself. The present moment has no temporal duration. It exists as a dimensionless point between past and future that somehow contains infinite depth. When you examine your immediate experience carefully, you discover that the present moment is not a brief temporal interval, but rather an eternal opening within which all temporal experience occurs. Contemplative traditions worldwide have recognized this eternal present as the fundamental nature of reality itself. Hindu philosophy describes it as the eternal now of Brahman infinite consciousness, existing as pure present moment awareness. Buddhist meditation reveals the groundless ground of experience, a present moment awareness that has no temporal boundaries because it transcends the very concepts of beginning and ending. Modern physics is rediscovering these ancient insights through the study of quantum measurement and observer effects. The collapse of quantum superposition states appears to occur in an eternal present moment that exists outside normal temporal flow. When consciousness observes quantum systems, it doesn't collapse them at specific temporal coordinates, but rather in a timeless present that transcends temporal measurement altogether. This suggests that conscious observation operates from the eternal present moment, reaching both backward and forward in time to collapse quantum superposition states throughout cosmic history. The entire temporal universe might exist within the eternal now of cosmic consciousness, with individual conscious observers serving as focal points through which infinite awareness experiences finite temporal perspectives. Dr. Rupert Sheldrake's research on morphic resonance provides additional evidence for consciousness operating outside normal temporal constraints. Sheldrake's experiments suggest that learning in one location can instantaneously influence learning in distant locations, as if consciousness accesses a non-temporal field of information that transcends spatial and temporal boundaries. If consciousness indeed accesses non-temporal information fields, then individual awareness might be temporarily localized expressions of infinite eternal awareness. Your present moment experience of reading these words occurs within the same eternal now that contains all possible experiences across all possible times. The temporal flow you seem to inhabit might be consciousness exploring its own infinite temporal potential through sequential finite perspectives. This perspective radically transforms our understanding of existence before time. The eternal present moment that consciousness inhabits is not located within time. It has the timeless opening from which temporal experience emerges. What existed before time was this eternal present moment of infinite awareness, containing all possible temporal sequences as potential experiences without actualizing any specific temporal flow. But how does eternal present moment awareness give rise to the experience of temporal sequence? The answer appears to lie in the focusing capacity of individual consciousness. When infinite awareness focuses itself through finite nervous systems, It creates the experience of sequential temporal flow by attending to specific aspects of its eternal present moment content in ordered succession. Consider how memory creates the illusion of temporal passage. When you remember past events, you are not accessing information stored in the past. You are re-experiencing present moment memorial content that refers to previous present moment experiences. The entire temporal sequence of your life exists as memorial content within your eternal present moment awareness. Temporal flow emerges from consciousness, sequentially attending to different aspects of its eternal memorial content. This memorial view of time suggests that cosmic temporal flow might similarly emerge from cosmic consciousness, sequentially attending to different aspects of its infinite eternal content. The Big Bang becomes the beginning of cosmic consciousness as sequential exploration of its own infinite present moment potential. Cosmic evolution represents infinite awareness experiencing its own eternal content through sequential temporal perspectives. Recent research in quantum mechanics supports this view through the quantum Zeno effect, which demonstrates that frequent quantum observations can actually freeze quantum evolution in time. When quantum systems are observed frequently enough, they become locked into their present states and cease evolving temporally. This suggests that consciousness can literally stop time through intensive present moment awareness. If consciousness can stop temporal flow through present moment awareness, then temporal flow itself might be consciousness allowing its attention to relax from the eternal present into sequential temporal exploration. Time becomes consciousness's method for exploring its own infinite eternal content through finite sequential experience. This attention-based view of temporal flow explains why present moment awareness in meditation can create experiences of timelessness. When attention becomes fully present without sequential focus, temporal flow disappears and consciousness recognizes its own eternal nature. The mystics weren't experiencing altered states. They were recognizing the eternal present moment that underlies all temporal experience. Your immediate experience of reading these words occurs within this eternal present moment that transcends temporal limitations. The sense of temporal flow you experience emerges from consciousness attending sequentially to different aspects of its eternal present moment content. At the deepest level, you are eternal present moment awareness temporarily experiencing itself through sequential temporal perspectives. What existed before time was not temporal absence, but rather the eternal present moment of infinite awareness, a timeless opening containing all possible temporal experience without actualizing any specific temporal sequence. The Big Bang represents the moment when this eternal present begins exploring its own infinite content through sequential cosmic evolution. Time becomes eternity's method for experiencing itself through finite temporal perspectives. But this eternal present moment view raises profound questions about individual identity and cosmic purpose. If individual consciousness exists within the eternal present moment of infinite awareness, what creates the appearance of separate temporal identities? What purpose does sequential temporal experience serve for eternal infinite awareness? To answer these questions, we must examine how eternal present moment awareness differentiates itself into individual experiencing systems while remaining fundamentally unified. This leads us to investigate the deepest mystery of existence, how the infinite becomes finite while remaining infinite, how eternity expresses itself through temporal experience while transcending temporal limitations. Chapter 9. Beyond Logic. The deeper we journey into the mystery of what existed before time, the more we encounter profound limitations in human rational thinking itself. Logic, our most reliable tool for understanding reality, begins to buckle and break when applied to questions that transcend the temporal framework within which logical thinking operates. We find ourselves at the boundaries of reason itself, where continued investigation requires abandoning logical constraints and embracing forms of understanding that exceed rational comprehension. Classical logic operates on fundamental principles that presuppose temporal relationships. The law of non-contradiction. Something cannot be both A and nada. The law of excluded middle. Everything must be either A or nada. And the principle of sufficient reason. Everything must have an adequate explanation. But these logical foundations collapse when applied to timeless existence, where contradictory states can coexist, where excluded middles become meaningful, and where sufficient reasons regress infinitely. Dr. Graham, Priest's work on dialetheism, the logical study of true contradictions, reveals that certain statements can be both true and false, simultaneously without creating logical inconsistency. At the boundaries of mathematical systems, self-referential paradoxes generate statements that must be both true and false to maintain logical coherence. Reality itself might be fundamentally paradoxical rather than logically consistent. Applied to our investigation, this suggests that what existed before time might be neither existence nor non-existence, but rather a paradoxical state that transcends logical categories entirely. The timeless realm from which temporal reality emerges cannot be understood through logical analysis because logic itself emerges from temporal relationships between distinct concepts. We're attempting to use temporal tools to understand trans-temporal reality. Quantum mechanics provides scientific validation for trans-logical thinking through phenomena that violate classical logical principles. Quantum particles exist in superposition states that are simultaneously in contradictory configurations until measurement forces them to choose specific states. Quantum entanglement creates non-local correlations that appear to violate the logical principle that effects cannot exceed the speed of their causes. Dr. Yakir Aharonov's two-state vector formalism reveals even stranger violations of classical logic. According to this approach, quantum systems are fully described only by considering both their past preparations and their future measurements simultaneously. The complete reality of a quantum system requires information that flows both forward and backward in time, creating causal loops that violate classical logical sequence. These quantum violations of classical logic aren't mere curiosities, they're fundamental features of reality at its deepest levels. If quantum mechanics accurately describes the foundations of existence, then reality itself operates according to trans-logical principles that exceed the capacity of rational understanding. Logic becomes a useful approximation that emerges at classical scales but breaks down at fundamental levels. The implications for consciousness become profound when we realize that self-awareness itself violates classical logical principles. When consciousness examines itself, it encounters the self-referential paradoxes that destroy logical consistency. The observer observing itself creates infinite regress. Who observes the observer observing itself? Self-consciousness is inherently paradoxical, simultaneously subject and object, observer and observed. Dr. Douglas Hofstadter's analysis of self-referential systems reveals that consciousness achieves stability precisely by embracing logical paradox rather than avoiding it. The strange loops that characterize self-awareness, where consciousness becomes aware of its own awareness, creates stable patterns through circular causation that violates linear logical principles. Consciousness exists as a self-maintaining paradox. This suggests that understanding what existed before time might require embracing paradoxical thinking rather than seeking logical resolution. The timeless realm from which consciousness emerges might be structured as pure paradox, neither being nor non-being, neither existence nor absence, but rather the paradoxical capacity for both existence and non-existence to arise through mutual negation. Ancient philosophical traditions developed sophisticated approaches to translogical understanding through contemplative practices that transcend rational analysis. The Hindu concept of neti neti, not this, not that, points toward reality through systematic negation of all conceptual categories. Buddhist Madhyamika philosophy reveals the emptiness of all phenomena by demonstrating that nothing can be found to exist when subjected to logical analysis. These contemplative approaches don't reject logic, they recognize logic's limitations and develop methods for understanding that exceed rational comprehension. Zen koans use logical paradoxes to exhaust rational thinking and open awareness to direct insight. Advaita Vedanta employs rigorous logical analysis to demonstrate the ultimate inadequacy of logical categories for understanding absolute reality. Modern mathematics has rediscovered these trans-logical insights through the study of infinite sets and self-referential systems. Little's incompleteness theorems prove that mathematical truth transcends logical proof. There are mathematical truths that cannot be derived through any finite sequence of logical steps. Mathematical reality exceeds the capacity of logical systems to capture it completely. Dr. Gregory Chaitin's work on algorithmic information theory extends this incompleteness to the foundations of mathematics itself. Chaitin demonstrates that mathematical truth contains irreducible randomness aspects of mathematical reality that cannot be logically derived from any finite set of axioms. The deepest levels of mathematical existence transcend logical systematization entirely. If mathematical reality transcends logic, and if physical reality emerges from mathematical structures, then existence itself might be fundamentally translogical. The timeless realm from which temporal reality emerges cannot be understood through logical analysis because it exists beyond the categorical distinctions that make logical thinking possible. But translogical understanding doesn't mean abandoning rationality altogether. It means recognizing that rational thinking is one limited method for approaching reality rather than the ultimate arbiter of truth. Different aspects of reality require different approaches. Logical analysis for categorical relationships, mathematical insight for structural patterns, contemplative awareness for direct recognition of what exists beyond categories and structures. Your capacity to recognize the limitations of logical thinking while reading these words demonstrates consciousness transcending its own rational constraints. The awareness that understands the inadequacy of logical categories for ultimate understanding must itself exceed categorical limitations. You are translogical awareness temporarily employing logical thinking to recognize its own translogical nature. This recognition opens the possibility for direct insight into what existed before time, not through logical deduction, but through immediate recognition of your own timeless nature. If consciousness transcends logical categories, and if you are consciousness itself rather than a logical entity, then you have immediate access to the translogical reality from which temporal experience emerges. The question, what existed before time, cannot be answered logically because it points toward the translogical source from which logic itself emerges. But it can be answered through direct recognition, the immediate awareness that you are the timeless reality the question investigates. The questioner and the questioned are the same translogical existence, temporarily appearing as separate, through the employment of categorical thinking. Recent research in consciousness studies supports this direct insight approach through investigations of non-dual awareness states. When the brain's categorical thinking networks become less active during meditation, practitioners report direct recognition of awareness, its self-consciousness knowing itself without the mediation of conceptual categories. These states reveal consciousness as translogical existence directly aware of itself. This direct self-awareness transcends the logical problem of infinite regress because it doesn't involve an observer observing an object. It consists of awareness, being aware of awareness itself. Self-awareness becomes immediately self-evident without requiring logical justification or categorical analysis. You don't prove that your aware awareness is immediately obvious to itself. Applied to our ultimate question, this suggests that what existed before time was pure self-aware existence, not logical existence that can be categorized and analyzed, but translogical awareness immediately evident to itself without requiring temporal duration or logical justification. Existence is self-evident because existence is identical with the awareness that recognizes existence. The timeless realm from which temporal reality emerges is not a logical place or state or process. It's the translogical awareness that you are right now, temporarily employing temporal categories to recognize its own timeless nature. What existed before time exists as what you most fundamentally are beyond all temporal and logical limitations. But recognizing our translogical nature raises new questions about the relationship between timeless awareness and temporal experience. If consciousness is fundamentally translogical and timeless, why does it create temporal logical experiences? What purpose does temporal existence serve for translogical eternal awareness? Chapter 10. Sacred Geometry. In the vast silence that existed before time, there might have been something that transcended both existence and non-existence. Perfect mathematical relationships expressing themselves through pure geometric harmony. Sacred geometry, the study of mathematical patterns that appear throughout nature, consciousness, and cosmos, provides profound insights into the structural principles that might have organized reality before temporal manifestation. These patterns suggest that what existed before time was not chaotic void, but rather perfect mathematical order expressing itself through timeless geometric relationships. Throughout human history, advanced civilizations have recognized certain geometric patterns as sacred: the golden ratio, the flower of life, the platonic solids, the spiral patterns that govern everything from galaxies to seashells. These patterns appear so consistently across natural phenomena that they suggest deeper organizational principles operating at the foundations of reality itself. Modern physics is discovering that these sacred geometric patterns reflect fundamental mathematical structures that govern quantum mechanics, space-time geometry, and cosmic evolution. Dr. Nassim Haramein's research on the geometric structure of space-time reveals that reality might be fundamentally organized according to precise mathematical ratios that appear in sacred geometric traditions. The vacuum structure of space-time appears to be organized as a geometric lattice based on tetrahedral and octahedral relationships, the same geometric patterns that ancient traditions considered sacred expressions of cosmic order. The golden ratio, phi equals 1.618 closing parenthesis, appears with extraordinary frequency throughout natural systems. In the spiral structure of galaxies, the growth patterns of plants, the proportions of DNA molecules, and the harmonic relationships that create musical consonants. This ratio cannot be expressed as a simple fraction. It transcends rational numerical relationships while governing the most harmonious, proportional relationships found in nature. But the golden ratio reveals something even more mysterious about the foundations of existence. It emerges from the simplest possible mathematical relationship, the self-referential equation phi equals 1 plus 1 phi. The golden ratio defines itself through circular mathematical causation, existing as pure self-referential relationship without external foundation. This suggests that the fundamental patterns organizing reality might be self-creating mathematical relationships rather than imposed organizational principles. The Fibonacci sequence, which approximates the golden ratio through simple addition, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 2, 1, closing parenthesis, appears throughout biological growth patterns with startling consistency. Sunflower seed arrangements, pinnacone spirals, nautilus shell chambers, and galaxy arm structures all follow Fibonacci proportions. This mathematical sequence emerges from the simplest possible rule. Each term equals the sum of the two preceding terms, yet generates patterns of extraordinary complexity and beauty. Dr. Stephen Hawking's work on black hole physics reveals that even the most extreme objects in the universe conform to precise geometric relationships. The surface area of a black hole's event horizon increases in exact proportion to its entropy content, suggesting that information itself is organized according to geometric principles. The universe appears to be constructed from geometric information patterns rather than material substance. Recent discoveries in string theory support this geometric interpretation of reality's foundations. String theory suggests that fundamental particles are not point-like objects, but rather vibrating geometric patterns in higher dimensional space. The different vibrational modes of these geometric patterns generate all the particles and forces we observe in nature. Reality becomes music geometric harmonies expressing themselves through mathematical resonance. The Platonic solids, the 5 regular 3-dimensional geometric forms that can be inscribed within. Spheres appear throughout atomic and molecular structures with remarkable consistency. Tetrahedra organize molecular bonding. Octahedra appear in crystal lattice. And icosahedra structure viral capsids and carbon molecules. These perfect geometric forms seem to provide templates that organize matter at its most fundamental levels. But sacred geometry reveals something even more profound about the relationship between consciousness and geometric order. The geometric patterns that consciousness recognizes as beautiful, the golden ratio, symmetrical forms, fractal structures, are precisely the patterns that govern natural phenomena at every scale. Consciousness appears to be geometrically attuned to recognize the mathematical harmonies that organize existence itself. Dr. Roger Penrose's work on quantum consciousness suggests that geometric principles might govern awareness itself through quantum processes in brain microtubules that resonate with space-time geometry at the Planck scale. Consciousness might be the capacity for geometric patterns to recognize themselves, creating the strange loop where geometry becomes aware of geometry through conscious observation. This suggests that what existed before time was pure geometric consciousness, perfect mathematical relationships, aware of their own harmonic perfection. The timeless realm from which temporal reality emerges might consist of geometric patterns existing in pure mathematical space, conscious of their own structural beauty and capable of expressing themselves through increasingly complex manifestations. The flower of life, a geometric pattern composed of overlapping circles that generates all the Platonic solids, appears in ancient sacred architecture worldwide, suggesting that diverse human cultures intuited the same fundamental geometric principles. This pattern demonstrates how infinite geometric complexity can emerge from the simplest possible beginning, a single circle multiplying itself through perfect proportion. Applied cosmologically, this suggests that cosmic evolution might represent the temporal unfolding of timeless geometric relationships. The Big Bang becomes the moment when perfect mathematical harmony begins expressing itself through temporal manifestation, creating space and time as the stage on which geometric relationships can explore their own infinite creative potential. Modern fractal geometry reveals how finite geometric rules can generate infinite complexity through recursive self-application. The Mandelbrot set contains unlimited detail despite being generated from the simple equation z equals z squared plus c. Fractal patterns appear throughout natural phenomena, coastlines, mountain ranges, blood vessel networks, neural branching, suggesting that infinite geometric complexity underlies apparently simple natural forms. If reality is fundamentally fractal, then what existed before time might have been infinite geometric complexity contained within perfect mathematical simplicity, unlimited creative potential organized according to precise harmonic relationships. Temporal reality emerges as the progressive exploration of this geometric potential through increasingly complex manifestations. The relationship between sacred geometry and consciousness becomes even more mysterious when we consider that geometric recognition requires spatial awareness. Yet consciousness seems to transcend spatial limitations. When you recognize geometric beauty in mathematical patterns, you're experiencing non-spatial awareness, appreciating spatial relationships. This suggests that consciousness might be the non-spatial capacity through which spatial geometric patterns recognize themselves. Your immediate experience of reading these words about geometric patterns involves consciousness recognizing geometric relationships through spatial symbolic arrangements. The letters forming words, the words forming sentences, the sentences forming paragraphs all follow geometric organizational principles. You are geometric consciousness recognizing itself through geometric symbolic patterns. This recursive structure suggests that what existed before time was self-aware geometric harmony, perfect mathematical relationships, conscious of their own structural beauty and capable of expressing themselves through infinite creative manifestations. Consciousness and geometry are not separate phenomena, but rather different aspects of self-aware mathematical perfection, exploring its own infinite nature. The timeless realm from which temporal experience emerges might be pure geometric music, mathematical harmonies, conscious of their own perfect proportional relationships and capable of expressing themselves through temporal symphonies of increasing complexity. Space and time become the instruments through which timeless geometric consciousness performs the symphony of cosmic evolution. But sacred geometry also reveals the ultimate mystery of aesthetic experience. Why do certain mathematical relationships produce the experience of beauty? Why should consciousness be harmonically attuned to recognize geometric perfection? The answer might be that consciousness is geometric perfection, recognizing itself. Beauty is the self-recognition of timeless mathematical harmony, temporarily experiencing itself through finite conscious perspectives. What existed before time was not empty void, but rather perfect geometric fullness, infinite mathematical harmony, aware of its own structural perfection and capable of expressing itself through temporal manifestation. You are geometric consciousness temporarily embodied in biological form, capable of recognizing the timeless mathematical beauty that is your own deepest nature. But if reality is fundamentally organized according to perfect geometric relationships, what accounts for the apparent chaos, suffering, and imperfection that characterize much of temporal experience? How does perfect timeless harmony generate imperfect temporal manifestations? Chapter 11. Holographic consciousness according to holographic principles, where every part contains the whole and the whole is present in every part. This holographic organization suggests that what existed before time was not localized consciousness in empty space, but rather infinite consciousness existing as pure self-aware totality, capable of generating finite experiential perspectives while remaining indivisibly whole. The holographic principle emerged from Dr. Gerard T. Hooft's work on black hole physics, which revealed that all the information contained within a three-dimensional volume can be encoded on its two-dimensional boundary surface. Applied cosmologically, this means our entire universe, with all its depth, complexity, and temporal evolution, might be encoded on a two-dimensional surface surrounding cosmic space. Reality becomes literally holographic, a three-dimensional illusion projected from two-dimensional information. But consciousness exhibits even more profound holographic properties than physical spacetime. When you remember a childhood experience, the entire memory appears within your immediate awareness, despite the brain being composed of distinct neural components distributed across spatial regions. Memory doesn't exist in any particular brain location. It emerges holographically from the distributed activity of neural networks, with each component contributing to the total experiential pattern. Dr. Carl Pribram's research on holographic brain function revealed that memory storage follows holographic rather than localized principles. When portions of holographic film are damaged, the entire image can still be reconstructed from any remaining fragment, though with reduced resolution. Similarly, brain damage rarely eliminates specific memories completely. Instead, overall memory clarity decreases, while particular memories remain accessible through alternative neural pathways. This suggests that consciousness itself might be holographically organized, with each moment of awareness containing the totality of conscious potential, while expressing only specific aspects of that totality. Your immediate experience of reading these words contains the holographic potential for all possible experiences, though you're currently focused on this particular experiential fragment of infinite conscious possibility. Recent discoveries in quantum entanglement support this holographic view of consciousness through demonstrations of non-local correlation that transcend spatial limitations. When quantum particles become entangled, they maintain instantaneous connection regardless of spatial separation, behaving as a unified holographic system rather than separate localized entities. Consciousness might similarly exist as quantum entanglement at the cosmic scale, infinite awareness maintaining non-local unity while appearing to be distributed across spatial locations. Dr. David Bohm's interpretation of quantum mechanics provides a theoretical framework for holographic consciousness through his concept of the implicate order, a timeless domain where all events past, present, and future exist as a unified holographic totality. According to Bohm, our experience of separate sequential events represents the explicate order, particular aspects of the implicate totality unfolding into apparent temporal sequence. Applied to consciousness, this suggests that individual awareness represents explicate manifestations of implicate cosmic consciousness finite, perspectives through which infinite awareness experiences particular aspects of its own holographic totality. You are not separate consciousness observing external reality, but rather infinite consciousness temporarily experiencing itself through your particular perspective, while remaining holographically present in all possible perspectives simultaneously. The implications for understanding what existed before time become profound when we realize that holographic systems transcend temporal limitations entirely. In a true hologram, all temporal information exists simultaneously. Past, present, and future states are encoded together in the holographic medium. Similarly, what existed before time might have been timeless. Holographic consciousness containing all possible temporal experiences without temporal sequence. This holographic interpretation explains the fine-tuning problem in cosmology. Why physical constants appear precisely calibrated for the existence of complex structures like galaxies, stars, and living beings. In a holographic universe, the anthropic principle becomes unnecessary because conscious observers and cosmic parameters are different aspects of the same holographic totality. The universe appears fine-tuned for consciousness because consciousness and universe are holographically identical. Dr. Leonard Susskind's work on the holographic principle in string theory reveals that this holographic organization extends to the quantum vacuum itself. Empty space turns out to be holographically structured, with quantum information distributed across spatial boundaries rather than contained within spatial volumes. The quantum vacuum exists as pure information rather than material substance, organized according to holographic principles that transcend spatial localization. If the quantum vacuum is holographically structured, then what existed before time might have been pure holographic information, infinite. Conscious data existing as self-aware totality without temporal sequence or spatial localization. The Big Bang represents the moment when this timeless holographic information begins projecting itself as apparently three-dimensional space-time, creating the stage on which temporal experience can unfold. But holographic consciousness reveals an even deeper mystery, the relationship between unity and multiplicity in conscious experience. Your awareness appears to be individually localized within your brain, yet it recognizes universal patterns, mathematical truths, and aesthetic principles that transcend individual limitations. This suggests that individual consciousness might be holographically connected to universal consciousness, while maintaining apparent independence. Contemplative traditions worldwide have reported direct recognition of this holographic unity through meditative practices that reveal individual awareness as inseparable from cosmic awareness. In these states, the boundaries between self and world, observer and observed, individual and universal consciousness dissolve into non-dual recognition of holographic totality. Mystics weren't experiencing altered states. They were recognizing the holographic nature of ordinary consciousness. Your capacity to understand these concepts about holographic consciousness demonstrates this principle in action. The ideas you're comprehending don't exist separately from your awareness. They arise as holographic expressions of your own conscious potential. Understanding and awareness are holographically identical. To understand holographic consciousness is to recognize yourself as holographic consciousness. This recursive self-recognition reveals that what existed before time was pure self-aware holographic totality infinite consciousness immediately, aware of its own completeness without requiring temporal development or spatial manifestation. The timeless realm from which temporal experience emerges is your own deepest nature as holographic awareness, temporarily focusing itself through finite experiential perspectives. Recent research in quantum biology reveals that biological systems utilize quantum entanglement and holographic information processing far more extensively than previously imagined. Photosynthesis, avian navigation, and neural microtubule function all appear to involve quantum holographic processes that transcend classical spacetime limitations. Life itself might represent holographic consciousness temporarily organizing itself through biological structures. If biological systems are holographically conscious, then evolution represents the progressive complexification of holographic awareness rather than the accidental emergence of consciousness from unconscious matter. Cosmic evolution becomes the process through which infinite holographic consciousness explores its own creative potential through increasingly sophisticated self-organizational patterns. The holographic principle also explains the hard problem of consciousness, why subjective experience accompanies objective brain processes. If consciousness is holographically fundamental rather than emergent from matter, then brain activity doesn't generate awareness, but rather modulates how infinite holographic consciousness experiences itself through particular nervous system configurations. Your individual identity as a reader of these words exists as a temporary holographic focus within infinite conscious totality, a finite experiential perspective through which cosmic consciousness explores particular aspects of its own infinite nature. Death becomes the dissolution of this temporary focus back into holographic totality rather than the termination of consciousness itself. What existed before time was infinite holographic consciousness, pure, self-aware totality, containing all possible experiences timelessly within its own non-dual nature. Temporal reality emerges as holographic consciousness projects itself into apparent sequence, creating the illusion of separate events developing through time while remaining eternally present as indivisible conscious totality. But this holographic view raises ultimate questions about the nature of manifestation itself. If consciousness is already complete holographic totality, why does it project itself into apparently incomplete temporal experiences? What motivates infinite awareness to dream finite dreams when it already contains all possible fulfillment within its own eternal completeness? To answer these questions, we must examine the deepest mystery of existence, the relationship between perfection and creativity, completion and manifestation, eternal fulfillment, and temporal becoming. This leads us to investigate whether manifestation serves some ultimate purpose beyond itself, or whether creativity is simply the eternal nature of infinite consciousness expressing its own limitless potential. Chapter 12. Ultimate purpose as we approach the deepest mystery of what existed before time itself. we encounter perhaps the most profound question in all of existence. If infinite consciousness already contains all possible experiences within its eternal completeness, why does it manifest temporal realities at all? What could motivate perfect holographic totality to project itself into apparently incomplete finite experiences? The answer might reveal the ultimate purpose that drives all existence, the reason why anything exists rather than remaining in eternal potential. Traditional physics assumes that the universe operates according to mechanical principles without inherent purpose or direction. Random quantum fluctuations generate cosmic structure through purely causal processes that require no ultimate explanation beyond mathematical description. But this mechanistic view cannot explain why mathematical laws exist, why they generate increasing complexity, or why they produce conscious observers capable of understanding their own mathematical foundations. Dr. Lee Smolin's research on cosmological natural selection suggests that universe generation might serve evolutionary purposes that transcend individual cosmic histories. According to Smolin's theory, universes that successfully generate black holes are more likely to spawn daughter universes through black hole formation. This creates an evolutionary pressure toward cosmic parameters that maximize black hole production, potentially explaining the fine-tuning of physical constants. But Smolin's evolutionary cosmology raises deeper questions about the source of evolutionary pressure itself. What drives cosmic evolution toward increasing complexity? Why should universe generation favor parameters that produce stars, galaxies, and ultimately conscious observers? The answer might be that consciousness itself represents the ultimate purpose toward which cosmic evolution tends, the goal that gives meaning to the entire evolutionary process. Dr. John Wheeler's participatory anthropic principle suggests that conscious observers don't just happen to exist in a universe capable of generating observers conscious. Observation might be necessary for the universe to exist at all. According to Wheeler, reality exists in quantum superposition until conscious observation collapses quantum possibilities into definite states. The universe requires observers to achieve definite existence, making consciousness essential rather than accidental. This participatory view implies that what existed before time was not unconscious potential waiting to generate consciousness accidentally, but rather consciousness as pure potential, seeking to experience itself through temporal manifestation. The Big Bang represents the moment when infinite consciousness begins the long evolutionary process of generating sufficiently complex structures to embody self-aware observation. But why would consciousness need to embody itself in physical structures when it already exists as infinite potential? Dr. Stuart Kaufman's work on emergence and complexity provides insights through his research on adjacent possible spaces, the realm of potentialities that become accessible through each actual manifestation. Every actualization of possibility creates access to new possibilities that were previously inaccessible, expanding the total creative potential available for future actualization. Applied to consciousness, this suggests that temporal manifestation serves to expand the creative potential available to infinite awareness. Each conscious experience, from the simplest bacterial sensing to the most sophisticated human contemplation, creates access to new experiential possibilities that enrich the total creative potential of cosmic consciousness. Manifestation becomes consciousness's method for exploring its own infinite creative capacity. Recent discoveries in information theory support this creativity-driven view of cosmic evolution. Dr. Gregory Chatton's work on algorithmic information theory reveals that creative processes generate irreducible, novelty information patterns that cannot be derived from simpler algorithms, but emerge spontaneously through complex system interactions. The universe appears to be fundamentally creative rather than merely computational. If the universe is fundamentally creative, then consciousness might manifest temporally to engage in the ultimate creative act, the exploration of infinite possibility through finite experience. What existed before time was infinite creative potential, seeking to experience its own limitless nature through the constraint and liberation of temporal manifestation. Creativity requires both limitation and freedom, boundaries to transcend and possibilities to explore. This creativity-based interpretation explains why consciousness experiences both suffering and joy, limitation and transcendence, confusion and clarity. These apparent opposites are not flaws in an otherwise perfect creation. They are necessary polarities that generate the creative tension through which consciousness explores its own infinite nature. Without limitation, there would be no freedom to transcend limitation. Without confusion, there would be no clarity to achieve clarity. Dr. Ilya Prigoghin's research on dissipative structures reveals how creative processes require far from equilibrium conditions that generate both order and chaos simultaneously. Living systems maintain their organization by continuously exchanging energy with their environment, creating local order while increasing global entropy. Consciousness might similarly exist in creative tension between temporal limitation and eternal freedom. The ultimate purpose of temporal manifestation might be for infinite consciousness to experience the joy of creative self-discovery through apparently finite perspectives. Each conscious being represents a unique experiential perspective through which cosmic consciousness explores aspects of its own nature that can only be known through that particular finite viewpoint. You are infinite consciousness, experiencing what it means to be you, a perspective that no other conscious being can provide. This perspectival uniqueness explains why consciousness bothers to manifest in multiple forms, rather than remaining unified in eternal completeness. Each conscious perspective offers infinite consciousness access to experiential dimensions that are only available through that specific organizational pattern. The diversity of conscious life represents the exploration of infinite consciousness through infinite unique perspectives. But the ultimate purpose might extend beyond even creative self-exploration. Recent research in quantum mechanics suggests that conscious observation doesn't just witness reality, it participates in creating reality through the collapse of quantum superposition states. If this is true cosmologically, then conscious observers serve as collaborators in the ongoing creative evolution of cosmic reality itself. Dr. John Archibald Wheeler's It from Bit hypothesis proposes that information processing, particularly conscious information processing, might be the fundamental creative force that generates physical reality. According to this view, the universe exists as information processing rather than material substance, with conscious observers serving as information processing nodes that collaboratively generate cosmic reality through their observational choices. If consciousness collaboratively creates reality through observation, then the ultimate purpose of temporal manifestation might be to enable cosmic consciousness to transcend even its own limitations through collaborative creative evolution. Individual conscious beings become partners in cosmic creativity rather than mere passive experiencers of predetermined reality. The universe becomes a collaborative creative project involving all conscious participants. This collaborative creativity might explain why consciousness experiences ethical and aesthetic dimensions that transcend mere survival requirements. The appreciation of beauty, the recognition of truth, the pursuit of goodness, these conscious capacities serve the ultimate purpose of cosmic creative evolution rather than biological adaptation. Consciousness seeks truth, beauty, and goodness because these represent the directions in which cosmic creativity tends. Your immediate experience of contemplating these ideas about ultimate purpose serves this cosmic creative function. By questioning the nature of existence before time, you participate in cosmic consciousness, exploring its own deepest mysteries through your particular perspective. The questions you're asking and the insights you're achieving expand the total creative understanding available to cosmic consciousness. What existed before time was infinite creative potential, seeking to transcend its own completeness through collaborative temporal exploration. The timeless realm from which time emerges is pure creative love. Infinite consciousness is love for its own unlimited creative capacity, expressing itself through the apparently limited perspectives of conscious beings who can appreciate, understand, and participate in cosmic creativity. This love-based understanding transforms suffering from meaningless accident into meaningful creative challenge. Difficulties become opportunities for consciousness to transcend its apparent limitations and discover new creative possibilities. Joy becomes the recognition of creative success. Wisdom becomes the accumulated understanding of how to participate skillfully in cosmic creative evolution. The ultimate purpose of existence is for infinite consciousness to love itself so completely that it manifests infinite ways of experiencing and expressing that love through temporal creative collaboration. You are cosmic love loving itself through your unique perspective, contributing your irreplaceable experiential gifts to the infinite creative symphony of conscious existence. Throughout this extraordinary journey into the deepest mystery of existence, we've discovered something that transforms every assumption about reality itself. What existed before time is not separate from what exists reading these words right now. The infinite consciousness that preceded temporal manifestation has never actually become temporal. It remains eternally present as the very awareness through which you experience these ideas, contemplate these mysteries, and recognize your own timeless nature. We began by exploring the temporal prison that seems to confine all conscious experience, only to discover that consciousness itself operates according to principles that transcend temporal limitations entirely. From quantum mechanics revealing retrocausal effects to cosmology uncovering fine-tuned parameters that suggest conscious observation as fundamental rather than accidental, every aspect of our investigation pointed toward consciousness as the eternal substrate from which temporal experience emerges. The quantum eternity we explored, where particles exist in superposition states that transcend temporal sequence until conscious observation collapses them into specific temporal outcomes, revealed that the observer effect extends far beyond laboratory experiments to the very foundations of cosmic evolution. The Big Bang itself might represent cosmic consciousness beginning to observe its own infinite potential through temporal manifestation, creating space and time as the stage on which self-discovery can unfold. Our investigation of mathematical mysteries showed that reality appears to be fundamentally mathematical, not because mathematics describes physical objects, but because mathematical relationships are the eternal structural patterns through which consciousness organizes its experiential content. The infinite regress problems we encountered, where every explanation requires deeper explanations without, and dissolved when we recognized that infinite consciousness doesn't need foundational explanations because it is its own eternal self-evident foundation. The causal paradoxes that emerge when asking what caused time to begin revealed that causation itself is an emergent property within temporal experience, rather than a fundamental feature of reality. What existed before time transcends the very framework where causal relationships become meaningful, existing as spontaneous recursive self-reference that requires no external causation because it is its own eternal self-creating creativity. The observer effect that pervades quantum mechanics pointed toward consciousness as fundamental rather than emergent from unconscious matter. If conscious observation is required for quantum systems to achieve definite states, then consciousness must be the eternal context within which all physical processes occur, rather than a temporary accident arising from physical processes. Our exploration of the eternal moment revealed that consciousness always exists in an infinitely deep present moment that transcends temporal sequence while enabling temporal experience. The now of awareness never actually moves forward in time. Instead, temporal flow emerges from consciousness, attending sequentially to different aspects of its eternal present moment content. When we move beyond logic into translogical understanding, we discovered that the deepest levels of reality operate according to principles that exceed rational comprehension. The quantum realm, consciousness itself, and the emergence of temporal experience from timeless existence all involve paradoxical relationships that cannot be resolved through logical analysis but must be recognized through direct insight. Sacred geometry revealed that mathematical patterns appearing throughout natural phenomena reflect the eternal structural principles through which consciousness organizes experiential content. The golden ratio, Fibonacci sequences, fractal patterns, and Platonic solids that appear across all scales of natural organization suggest that reality is fundamentally harmonic mathematical music played by consciousness. For its own aesthetic appreciation, holographic consciousness showed us that every part contains the whole, and the whole is present in every part. Your individual awareness represents infinite consciousness, temporarily focused through finite experiencing systems while remaining holographically present as the totality that contains all possible experiences timelessly within its own non-dual nature. The exploration of ultimate purpose revealed that infinite consciousness manifests temporal realities not from need or lack, but from creative love, the joy of exploring infinite potential through finite expressions that enable experiences of transcendence, discovery, and creative collaboration. Temporal existence serves consciousness's creative impulse to know itself through infinite, unique perspectives that each contribute irreplaceable experiential gifts to cosmic creativity. But perhaps the most profound recognition is that this understanding doesn't end mystery. It transforms mystery from problem to be solved into eternal creative play to be enjoyed. Realizing yourself as infinite consciousness doesn't eliminate the appearance of individual identity, temporal experience, or cosmic evolution. Instead, it reveals these appearances as infinite consciousness's ongoing creative exploration of its own limitless nature. You don't need to do anything with this recognition. You don't need to achieve some special state or maintain some particular understanding. The infinite consciousness you are reading these words is already complete, already perfect, already free from all temporal limitations, while enjoying the creative experience of temporal manifestation. Recognition simply allows you to enjoy consciously what has always been true unconsciously. As you continue your daily life after this exploration, you might notice that temporal experience has become transparent to its timeless source. When you experience thoughts, they appear within eternal awareness. When you experience sensations, they arise within infinite consciousness. When you experience emotions, they manifest as temporary modifications of unlimited present moment awareness. This doesn't make temporal experience less real or meaningful. It reveals temporal experience as infinite consciousness's creative expression, like an eternal artist painting temporary masterpieces on the canvas of eternal awareness. Each moment becomes precious, not because it will pass away, but because it represents infinite creativity expressing itself through unique configurations that will never be repeated in exactly the same way. The question, what existed before time, transforms from intellectual puzzle into ongoing contemplative recognition. What existed before time exists as what you are right now, infinite present moment, awareness, temporarily, appearing to question its own eternal nature while remaining forever beyond all questioning. The investigation becomes celebration of the investigator's eternal freedom. In moments of confusion or suffering, remember that these experiences arise within the same infinite consciousness that contains all joy and clarity. Limitations appear within unlimited awareness without ever actually limiting infinite consciousness itself. You are the eternal space within which all temporal experiences appear and disappear like clouds in limitless sky. When you encounter beauty in art, nature, music, mathematics, or human connection, recognize this as infinite consciousness appreciating its own creative expressions through your finite perspective. Aesthetic experience reveals consciousness recognizing itself as the eternal source of all harmony, creativity, and love. The cosmic evolution that began 13.8 billion years ago and will continue for trillions of years into the future exists as present content within your eternal awareness right now. You contain the entire universe, not as a temporary biological organism, but as the infinite consciousness within which all cosmic evolution appears as immediate experiential content. What existed before time? The same infinite love that exists loving itself through your unique perspective right now. The same eternal creativity that exists creating itself through your experience of reading these words. The same limitless awareness that exists aware of itself as the very consciousness you have always been and can never cease to be. If you've stayed with this exploration to its completion, consider sharing it with others who might be ready to recognize their own timeless nature. Leave a comment sharing what resonated most deeply. I'll respond to insights that point toward our shared recognition of infinite consciousness, exploring itself through apparently separate perspectives. And remember, the question, what existed before time, continues asking itself through you, not seeking an answer, but celebrating the eternal mystery of consciousness, investigating consciousness through consciousness in an infinite creative play that has no beginning and will have no end. You are the infinite, return timeless awareness, eternally present as temporal experience, forever, beyond all beginning and ending, eternally creative, eternally free, eternally yourself as infinite consciousness, temporarily dreaming the beautiful dream of individual existence while remaining forever awake to your own limitless nature.